Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Scattercast, a channel where we dedicate to the things that we're into in the moment, whether it's magic or role playing or music. Today's episode is going to be a little different. We're just going to kind of reminisce for a little bit about the anniversary of COVID. If you've been following our channel from the beginning at all, the reason why we're here is kind of spawned out of COVID. We started as an audio only podcast, and then just through wanting to talk and communicate. During quarantine and stuff like that, we started to record stuff and then realized that this is kind of more of a natural fit for us because we can show each other things, show you guys what we're into, and not just be audio only. So yeah, we just want to talk just about Ray has a unique perspective from his job of what he went through. I'm more or less just what everybody else kind of saw and went through, but yeah, we're just going to jump into that for a little bit and just kind of have a quick little discussion and everything.
Office under. Hey, wait. By the way,
Yeah.
I don't care if you hit record because it can be like tail end of
Okay.
whatever. But uh, this day is weird for me. All right,
Okay.
because for me personally, and it may be for you or for people listening, whatever. But this to me, I saw the freaking slow boat coming over.
Yeah.
With Corona. We've already talked about this. I saw this shit back in December.
Yeah.
You made the joke about like the beginning of every uh the beginning of every disaster movie is like a fucking scientist being like, hey, it's me.
Read it. Yeah.
But like, no, seriously, this to me, this was the day that signified, like we talked about before, like, we're never going to go back to September 10th.
Yeah.
When it comes to like 9/11. And March 11th to me like is the defining day of it. Went from coronavirus was like something that was like kind of being talked about in the news to all of a sudden from like 8 o'clock in the morning until that evening, everything fucking changed.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't like sports,
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend, if you're interested in going, well, maybe you're not, maybe you want to forget about it. But for me, I was like, this is exactly how it felt.
Yeah.
But go and look up the podcast. It's called 30 for 30 podcast. It's ESPN's
I know
30
30
for
for
30
30. Yeah.
podcast. Yeah. They do like the actual, like, but
Deep
they have a
dive
podcast,
too.
which is like an audio version. And they have a 30 for 30 um podcast episode called March 11th, 2020. And it starts out and they're talking about like it's all like the news, and it's like, good morning, like last night on The Bachelor, and Harvey Weinstein's sentencings today. A lot of people forget that happened on this day last
Oh,
year.
geez.
um and how like COVID was still kind of like in the background type of thing. And then all of a sudden it's like throughout that day it was like, oh shit, the Ivy League canceled the rest of their freaking.
Yeah.
And then that night at like 7:55 at night, and I remember this, um we went to a run. I was on my way to a run, and my captain was like, oh shit, they're like canceling. I think they're canceling the March Madness tournament. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then we went on that run. That run only lasted like 30 minutes. It was a medical.
Mm-hmm.
I got back to the freaking station. And when I got back to the station, my news alert on my phone was the NBA postpones the NBA season due to like, and I called Amber and I was like, babe, this is so fucking serious that they literally postponed the NBA season
Yeah.
for it. And then within the next 2 days, it was like the MLB, NHL. I remember sitting in the parking lot at Walmart, and it said like breaking news, and I clicked on it, and it was just the stock ticker, and it was like the fucking downward, like
Yeah.
literal crash of the stock market. And the only reason why I bring that up is because we talk about how like all this stuff that we're into and stuff like that. And for me, and it's still kind of sad to think about, but like that was the beginning of that like almost month-long period where I couldn't be excited about anything.
Oh yeah, I wasn't excited
Like
about shit. Yeah.
like everything to me was just numb. Like
Yeah.
I everything I did was like very easily digestible.
Yeah.
So it was like news,
Mhm.
it was, laying on the couch, like literally depressed and just listening to music to try to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Um, it was easy video games I didn't have to think about, but I was not excited about anything because like I literally felt like our fucking world was
Yeah.
like ending. And that was the beginning of it, was this day last year. So,
Yeah.
but to, you know, bring some light into that,
Yeah.
it's such a contrast because even though they're not playing in front of fans and stuff like that, it was so weird tonight because literally right when this podcast was right when we were getting ready to record, I had the fucking Red Wings game on my computer. I had the NCAA tournament
Nice.
on the so I had like all this sports going, and I was like, this is all the shit that came crashing down a year ago, and now it's like up and running. Like
Up and running. Yeah.
they're at least doing it. It may not
Yeah.
be with fans or maybe like very diminished, but
Mm.
they're at least doing it. So it's a sign of hope. It's a sign of the end of the
Oh
tunnel.
yeah, I mean, I remember I stopped listening to music. I stopped doing like you said, doing a lot of the stuff that I loved, and then just became very just like depressed, super anxiety. And then because I remember you had mentioned like, "Hey, we need to do a recording," and I was like, "I don't want to talk about this shit." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like, "But we'll maybe wait." And it took until about
It was like mid-April. I think we did a podcast on something. We
yeah,
did
we started
something.
doing some stuff, and
And we
then
kind of talked about it a little bit.
Ikoria,
And
Ikoria was like the thing that kind of brought me out. Like, oh, you can enjoy things and be happy for stuff.
yeah, because I literally was still in that funk. Like Alex was home. It was kind of nice out. I
Mhm.
couldn't do anything with him. So I was literally like across the street at the little playground we have, and he was like playing around and stuff like that. And I was just
Yeah, I didn't feel
like mindlessly flipping through my phone. And then I saw these like images of fucking Godzilla magic cards, and I'm like,
what the hell.
the fuck? And I remember like like sending you the freaking thing, like, dude, watch this. Well, I didn't tell this story to a lot of people because I don't want to freak people out or like manufacture like, you know, fear among people. I didn't tell Amber this story until just a little while ago, but it was that weekend. So that was Wednesday of last year. This time last year it was Wednesday.
Mhm.
And I was working. The next day I had to go get groceries, and because of all the announcements, people were starting to like mass buy like a lot of shit. That was like when the whole toilet paper fiasco happened and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I was like telling Amber, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, it's not, I'm like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. I'm like, I just went to Meyer and Walmart, and like the stuff, like the like nobody's here.
Mhm.
Like fucking shelves are full and stuff like that. Then that Friday I worked,
Friday was the day.
and a guy came in and was like, dude, I was at the Kroger where he's from, which is like a town over. And he's like, I honest to God watched a lady take a cart and go down the aisle and do this and like literally like scoop soup cans into a cart. He's like, the line was like all the way to the back of the store to get out. And Amber called me, like he told me the story. Amber calls me like 20 minutes later, and she's like, babe, people at work are like talking about like everybody's like ravaging the stores right now. Like shit's fucking coming to an end. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So she tells me, hey, tomorrow you need to go to the store, whatever, like whatever you gotta do. So I'm like, all right, that's fine. So I finish my shift off. I go to the store on Saturday.
Mhm.
Something happened that day. We were busy. I didn't go until about 4 o'clock, and I go to Walmart, and I get back to the back of the store, and that's where like the milk and stuff like that is. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get a couple gallons of milk. I'm gonna get this. I'm not gonna be stupid about it, but like let's get what we have to survive on for a couple weeks, because even though there was one part of my brain that was kind of like in a little bit almost panic mode
Yeah.
because of what everybody was doing, there was the other part of me that was like, look, COVID is not going to stop supply lines. It's not going to infect food. This isn't like a natural disaster. This is just a disease that people need to be careful of. So I'm like, the ship is gonna right itself. But just in case, let's get some necessities. And plus, I'm already like kind of a survivor anyway. Like I can live, like if everything just like boom, like an EMP struck, all our internet went out, cars didn't drive. Like it was like if fucking The Walking Dead happened tonight, we're gonna be fine for like a month. That's how I've always lived my life.
Yeah.
But when I got back to that fucking milk section of Walmart, there was a whole gaggle of Walmart employees in the corner. They have like a little room that comes out right there. And there was like 6 of them in a circle. And they were handing this manager was handing each one of them tourniquets. And I'm like, the fuck is this guy? Like, I know what a tourniquet looks like. So I'm like it piques my, and this girl, this like 17-year-old girl grabs this tourniquet and she's like, what's this for? And he goes, things are about to get really fucking crazy.
Wow.
And I'm like, they're handing tourniquets out to employees. So I'm like, that's sketchy. And then I'm like, still not fully comprehending what's going on. So I'm like, I'm going to go over here and look at the DVDs. So I go over and look at the fucking DVD section, which happens to go just past the freaking sporting goods section. And there's like fucking soccer moms. This is no joke. There was little soccer moms buying shotguns. And this lady's like, okay, so how do you, and this guy's showing this fucking lady how to work a shotgun. And I'm like, fuck me. And that's when my like anxiety and depression started to set in, because I'm like, we've gotten to the point where they're handing out tourniquets to employees, and people that don't normally have any association with guns whatsoever are buying guns, because we're at the precipice of the end of civilization.
Yeah. Remember when we were hunting and that one kid was like obsessed with shooting shit?
Yeah.
Brought a shot. The rule was no loaded weapons in the
yes
box. And he starts unracking it and dropping shells and shit all over.
But I'm like looking at this fucking like well-kept fucking soccer mom, like, and she's like holding this shotgun, and she's like asking the guy like, well, how do I load it and stuff like that. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, people are buying guns and shit. So, and then it spiraled out of control from there. Like, I literally hit like about, I'd say a good 2 weeks of like real. And I was really worried about you, and I was really worried about the rest of the family, because I'm like, no offense to you guys, but I'm like, I feel like somebody like Dad and somebody like me are probably the best equipped people in this family to handle a crisis, because, you know, Dad's been to war. He's been a cop. He's done all this shit. I, do firefighting and stuff like that. Like, I've seen stuff. Like, I don't get shook very easy. And when that like shook me to my core, that's when I started reaching out to like you and Dana. You probably remember getting that text or that phone call that night. Like, hey, how you guys doing? What's going on? Like, all of a sudden I started like talking and to people from the family, like that, like, cause we're a big, like, a couple times a year get together and just like hug, like we all love each other. Like, we're not an estranged family, but we're not like keep up with each other's shit like every single day.
No, we'll text when something cool happens and shit like that.
And I went like 2 months of like reaching out to Janice and Josh and reaching out to mom and dad like almost every single day. Like you and Dana, like, how's everybody doing? How's everybody? Because of that, because like literally like I was shook to my core. Yeah. And that don't happen. Like, I don't get fucking spooked about fucking shit like that.
And it's funny because I have like, very similar stuff to you and Dad, where it's like, being at that concert a couple of years ago, as we're at a concert, I was like, let's move away from these guys. They getting a bad vibe. And then guess who's getting escorted out by security with their shirts ripped off. Right. So, and I talked a lot about this in my, when I was in therapy for a while, just that whole idea of like, I'm very attuned to crisis, of like, I get very like aware, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And just, okay, what do we do? You know what I mean? So I would like turn that on.
And that was the thing for me. It was like, I saw all this coming. And then like, even though I saw it coming, there was still that part of me that was like, yeah, but like a couple of years ago, you saw like fucking dengue fever and whatever in
Yeah.
like another country, like crop up, and you thought like that might have been. And then I was on a Ebola task force in 2014, and
Mhm.
we thought like Ebola was gonna like fucking hit the country and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So there was still that part of me that was almost denial, almost like it's not gonna be that big of a deal. Like we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah. I,
But this day
mhm.
last year was when the World Health Organization came out and they declared it a pandemic.
Yeah.
And they said this is a pandemic. Because I remember the side note to all the shit getting canceled that night was earlier in that day, the freaking guy I work with being like, well, explain what's a pandemic, like what makes a pandemic. And
Yeah.
like me and my coworker trying to explain it to me, he's like, no, tell me what's me. And it was like already like all that was already the infancy of like the anti-maskers
Yeah.
and all that bullshit, like wanting to, but it's all out of fear. It's all based out of fear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because
but yeah, it was fucked, man. I
yeah,
was
it
like,
was
fuck me.
the 10th Michigan. We voted in our primary, and I remember I would just carry around uh,
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
this thing of
Yep.
anti-vax, and we went and voted. And then watching like MSNBC or something that night, Rachel Maddow said that Michigan had our first case, our first confirmed case. By the next morning, by the 11th, it was like 3 cases. I had IT look at my work computer to get that mobile just in case. You know what I mean? Thursday.
Yeah, because on the 11th they were already making those announcements,
We
like
might have to.
Google
Yeah.
was
We
already
were
like
slower
making
to
their
it because we didn't have a case until the 10th. So like
yeah.
and I deleted Facebook off my phone. I was already done with people.
Well, that was a slow burn from the west to the east, because East Coast had like the case in Boston. They had like a couple cases that like sprung up in the Chicago area, and there was like some Spanish, but the West Coast was the ones that were getting ready to hit because they had the nursing home.
Yeah, the nursing
and they
home
had
and the
that
cruise
ship
ship.
coming in and stuff like that. So Google was like they were already telling their fucking people like stay home, work from home if you can. But yeah, sorry, go on.
No, because then I went out that Wednesday because I had to go to Costco, and like an idiot, I just buy what we needed for the meal and like salt or whatever for the water softener, and then bought one thing of the mac and cheese, the Aunt Annie's, the like the 12-pack mac and cheese, because at the time it was 2 weeks. All I was needing is 2 weeks worth of food. I'm like, shit, this is 2 weeks worth of lunches.
This is 2 weeks worth. Yeah.
You know, and I remember seeing a dude sneeze on a pair of pants, and I wanted to punch him in his face. It's like all we've been hearing is wash your hands, cover your mouth. You know what I mean? Don't touch your face. Don't cough on anything. And he's literally looking at a big thing of pants and just straight up raw dog sneezes all over it. And I was just like, mother, dude, we really. So then we came home on Friday. Dana didn't get called off of her job until Monday that she could work from home. So she worked with her laptop, and we kind of like jury rigged it to another monitor. So, and then that Tuesday we went and got all of her computer stuff, and actually went to Meijer and got like actual food and supplies. And I always felt guilty about it because you know how you're talking about like the whole idea of like, we don't, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I was just finishing up Mutant Year Zero on PlayStation 4. Mm-hmm. And I remember washing dishes one night, and that game takes place at hundreds of years after the Red Fever wipes out humanity and nuclear war, like is like the icing on this cake of this pandemic. And then, humans mutate into these like animal creatures. And I remember thinking like, man, this is crazy. I'm playing a game about a pandemic, and we're like, but no, well, it's just going to be the 15 cases. Thinking about like, man, what would we do if this just really became a pandemic? So like 2 days later, it became a pandemic. I was like, oh man, I caused this shit. What did I do? Why did I think that?
Dude, I did the same thing though. Like I'm not gonna be able to find it now, but I like back in February of last year, I actually watched the movie Contagion, and
that was the number one movie on Netflix. Contagion and Outbreak.
Facebooked it
the weekend
and put like back at like the beginning of February, I Facebooked it and put research, and mom and a couple of other people were like laughing at it, like, oh, that's because people were kind of talking about it, like, oh, this really weird disease is going on over here, and yeah, it might actually get here and blah blah. But yeah, like it just like there's certain things that like happen, like you'll always remember. Even like September 11th, like there's certain sounds or things that will happen that will always remind you of September 11th. And like for me, sitting in that Walmart parking lot, getting ready to go in and hearing that like weird, like it was like the sounds of the stock exchange, but it was just the stock exchange board.
Yeah.
So you could hear like the hustle and bustle in the background. It's like this weird like bell that was like ding 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 ding, and I was just watching it like go down. And selfishly, at first, besides like not knowing like if we're gonna be able to get food for the next couple of weeks, is this disease gonna be something that's gonna wipe out a lot of people? I even at the time I knew like it was only the elderly and people that had pre-existing conditions, stuff like that. But there was still a part of me that was like, Jesus Christ, like when this is done, like how many people do we know are gonna die from this or something like that? But there was a selfish part of me that was like watching that crash, and I'm like sitting there literally thinking like my entire life savings is gone. Like all my fucking retirement is wiped out. Like this whole future that I had built for myself, because I'm looking at 10 years. Like this is scary to think, but like I'm literally in position that 10 years from now I may be moving to fucking Florida and retiring. Like,
Yeah.
see ya, bitches. Like, yeah. I've done it. Like, I've gotten there, and I'm watching all this like crumble before my eyes, and it was just like everything, like all that culmination. And the scariest thing was that whole concept of food and basic necessities, and the fact that most Americans don't plan for shit like this. I mean, we can look at what happened in fucking Texas just a month ago with like what they went through with the whole their energy and everything going to shit, and they didn't have food or water or anything like that.
Well, there was like real concern because there was a lot of misinformation around us. There was like real concern within those first 2 weeks of like martial law is going to get called. And like,
yes, that was the big thing, martial law and all that. Yep. So. I do remember that. I remember having those. So sorry, didn't mean to darken it all down, but yeah, dude, seriously, check that out, dude. Okay. Look up it's 30 for ESPN 30 for 30 podcast. Okay. And they don't have a new one. That's actually the one that came out in December. It's called March 11, 2020. Okay. And it's just kind of neat. It's kind of neat to go back and listen. It's almost like September 11th. So you go back, and after everything was done, and then they like a year later, they're like looking back on September 11th, and it's that whole weird like, oh, it's blue skies and blah blah, yeah. And they're talking about like the Yankees are going to take on the da da da, or whatever, and like how normal everything was, and then it wasn't.
It wasn't.
It's the same thing with this. The only difference is that September 11th was very sudden and acute, and this actually was like a slow building storm that happened, because Fauci's on that podcast is actually talking about how he was at a congressional hearing talking about, hey, we've already got like 1,200 cases and 29 deaths. This is a serious public health emergency. We need to start thinking about like not having fans at sporting events and stuff like that. And then he actually gets pulled from his congressional hearing early for an emergency meeting with Trump to go over like what's going to happen. And then that's when Trump made his announcement that night that they were banning like all travel from Europe. This is the way. Now I get that, like, you and mom and stuff like that, you guys take a lot of what I say seriously, and I've obviously got a history when it comes to this kind of thing. I was on an Ebola task force. I'm part of my job is like, that's what I study, is this kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I'm a nobody. And I always say, if I saw this coming back at the end of December, early January, then there's no excuse that our government either A, didn't see it coming, or B, decided not to do anything until March 11th.
Until March 11th, yeah.
Because it's not like March 11th is like, because everybody like, okay, we want to like not celebrate, Jesus Christ, that's not the right word, but
no,
everybody wants that like kind of like earmark. And that's what I started talking about, was that for me, March 11th was kind of like that day that everything did kind of change. Like, it's not like nobody heard of COVID before March 11th.
No,
like they saw it coming, but March 11th was like that earmark day of everything changing, because that was when like they literally like canceled the March Madness tournament. The NBA got canceled that night within 2 days. Like the MLB and NHL canceled their seasons. Like everything got canceled and started shutting down on March 11th. So my question's always going to be, why did it take it took that long to get that point? I mean, before people started really going, oh, maybe we need to start looking at this. Like, it's not the flu and it's not this or that.
Not to get into anything, we're going to end it right here. But like, I think that for sake of, history or whatever, this will be one of those things that gets looked at over and over and over. And for me, it's weird because it's like it's been a year, but I still feel like I'm very much in it. So I haven't, like, some things that we've been talking about now, it's like, oh, I'm starting to have, weird feelings about, because it's like, oh, I remember that. I can't believe it's a year ago. But it's like, it's very much, I'm not at that point of like how I remember it. Does it make sense? Probably doesn't make sense to anybody, but it's weird.
And we both have like unique perspectives on it too, because for me and Amber, like, our life outside of like the aspects of life that change for everybody, like, so like the fucked up economy, like, restaurants closing down, that kind of thing, food being scarce for a while, toilet paper being scarce, like, that obviously affected everybody. But if you take that out of the equation, we have different perspectives anyway, because you had to like completely shut down, quarantine, like you work from home like this whole time. And I didn't have that luxury. So Amber and I always talk about that, where we're like, we can't like, not like, we can't slight people, and we can't like take that for granted, that like when you hear about people like having like real fucked up like emotions and mental anguish over it, we can't like take that for granted, because we were not affected like that. Like, our livelihood didn't really change drastically. Like, we didn't have to stay home. Like Alex, I don't know if this has been made public before, but like, Alex has autism, and he goes to an autism center, which is considered medical necessity. So it's like, it, for us and to him, that's school, but his school never shut down. So it's like, we don't even have that. Like, we didn't even have to deal with like the whole, like, what do you do when you have a fucking kid at home? So we do have like a different, like, unique look on the whole situation, because it's like, we had the situation from, world shut down, everything got fucked and stuff like that. But at the same time, it doesn't totally feel like that for us, because I still had to go to work every day. I still had to travel every day. So because of that, I even did a lot of things that most people didn't do. Like, a lot of people, even if you could go to the store, chose not to go to the store, And I went to the store and stuff like that. Like, because my whole thing was, I'm like, I'm working in this, I'm going to get it. So I kind of threw my hands up at the beginning. I'm like, I kind of,
when is it going to happen?
Assumed I was going to get it. I didn't know that it was going to be almost a year later, and it was going to be a fucking coworker's negligence that was going to give it to me. But that's another story.
All right. Yeah, I think everyone. It's weird that everyone's going to have the same and different story depending on their job, depending on you know what I mean. Because we always felt fortunate of like, what do we got to complain about? We still have our jobs. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's another aspect of
But
it. So
there
you've
is
got,
things that
yes.
we are allowed to complain about of just the whole idea of like we're in our house all the time.
Yeah,
You know what
that's
I
so
mean?
true
So,
though. I never thought about that. You're absolutely right because like I have the aspect of like, okay, I'm essential. I can't stay home.
mhm.
So I have to go out and work in this. You have the aspect of looking at it of like, hey, at least we were able to work from home. So they didn't just like come out and be like, oh, sorry, no job now. You know, like that sucks, dude. I can't imagine like just having somebody being like, not. That's why I feel like a complete piece of shit. Like the guys I work with that are like, when the stimulus checks come and stuff like that. I'm like, fuck you, dude. You don't need a goddamn stimulus
Yeah,
check.
we don't need it.
Like, fuck that. Like if the government's gonna give it to me, like I'm not gonna rip it up. Okay.
No.
So I'm gonna use it and pay off
That's
a
the
bill or
best.
something like that, right?
Actually, the best thing you can do with it is buy something like local. Like actually purchase.
Yes.
The worst thing you can do with it is save it or pay off.
And when this is all said and done, I hope a whole bunch of that stuff because I hope that like, you know, less of a there's less of an emphasis on what was fucked up. Well, no, okay, sorry, take that back. There needs to be an emphasis at the beginning. So when this is finally over,
Yeah.
and who knows when, because
Who knows when
we like to compare this a lot to September 11th, but the reason why is because for our generation, it's like we haven't been through a lot of earth shattering shit,
mm-hmm.
except for something like September 11th, which
Yeah.
spawned wars. You know,
Yeah.
we had people fighting wars for years over that. And then now this. But so yes, in the beginning, like when it's time, when this is finally over, or at least over enough, there needs to be a 9/11 commission style thing that goes back and goes, what the fuck? Where was the ball dropped and stuff like that? But at the same time, I think there needs to be an emphasis on the good of things that happen about this.
Yeah.
You know, and how people persevered and made it work.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people now that, you know, probably do like Grubhub and stuff like that would have never done that. So, you know, home delivery, things like that, that's going to have a boom, and it's probably going to stay a boom because people realize like, oh, wow, that is really easy. I can go on this app and I can get food delivered to my house. You know, people made things work. But it is an interesting thing, like to dissect and go like, man, like you said, I was affected very little because I'm still out working in it. So like my job didn't change at all. I didn't have to figure out a way to set up a home office.
Yeah.
I didn't have to figure out a way because people don't think about that. And you and Dana are perfect examples of this, of the people that are like, ooh, you know, like must be nice to, you know, like just sit around in your fucking pajamas and work from home and stuff like that. And it's like, dude,
Yeah.
you don't understand like just the oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the not what's like not religion, the whatever, like the whole thing behind getting in your car
Yeah.
and going to work and doing your thing, and then you do your job, and then you come back to your home.
Yeah.
And your home is your place that you relax and you kick back and stuff like that. And now it's like you got to figure out a way to how do we separate our office and our home and our work and our home, because it's like, what do you do? Like, okay, I'm gonna get up from the dining room table and then I'm gonna walk 10 feet to the living room and now I'm home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
Dana's
so
legitly still working
yeah.
in our kitchen. She has a normal desk and normal office chair. Our kitchen has been an office for a year. This has been an office.
A ritual.
You know,
that's what I was thinking of. The ritual of going to work.
Yeah.
Maybe you go to like Starbucks or a restaurant to get a breakfast on the way in. Whatever your ritual is, the whole ritual of getting up, going to work, getting ready, getting dressed, you know, going to your work, and then coming home, and now you're home, and that's relaxing time. It's like,
Yeah. We don't
I don't
have
know
that.
how you
But
guys like mentally turned off
we've figured it out.
work
Yeah.
and relaxing. You
I mean,
know,
there's days that I work like in my pajamas, but it's
Mhm.
very rarely, and it's usually like something happens where I need to just be here, you know.
Yeah, I
And
think it would be for
but
someone like me. I think it would be hard. I think it would be
yeah,
hard
it's been
because
a struggle.
if I had a job to go to
Yeah,
and then do what I had to do for that 8, 9 hours a day, and then come home, and now that I'm home, works on the back burner
yeah,
until the next day. If I all of a sudden had to do everything from the house,
Mhm.
I'd be fired
Yeah.
because I don't know if I'd be able to do it because I have all this distractions around me. I'd be
Yeah.
like watching TV, fucking around on podcasts, doing this.
See,
I'm still this day like try to be mindful of texting you
yeah,
because I'm like, hey, it may feel like to me like, oh, he's just sitting around the house not doing anything right now because he doesn't have to go into work, but he's probably trying to do work.
yeah,
And I'm like texting him like fucking like videos
yeah.
of
No, I
like
keep, I pretty
insane
much keep
drummers and shit
my
like
still
that.
work. I get up, I shower,
Yeah.
we work out, we do stuff, and I keep my schedule. If it's 2 o'clock, I'll play around on my phone or like watch a video because I know that's when I would take my break.
Yeah.
So I keep it very compartmentalized.
As long
But
as you're productive,
yeah,
you're
no, yeah,
productive.
dude, I'm more productive now than I ever was. But
Yeah.
so this was our weird kind of look back episode.
Yeah.
Hope and it's just we're just kind of venting and talking. This is actually more a bit inside baseball what our audio podcast was mostly about.
Right.
But we just wanted to get some stuff off our chest. Kind of just
Yeah.
chat,
It's just because it's like I said, everybody kind of wants to put like
their own year.
not to keep flogging the September 11th horse, but like September 11th was an acute thing that happened. Like it happened that day, and we all remember that. And so everybody that I talked to, the Biden went out tonight and did a presidential address.
Mm-hmm.
Because even to him, this was like kind of like the earmarked day of it. So it was on my mind, and I threw some stuff out there to you, and the conversation got going, and I didn't mean for it to take up like a half hour of our night, but everybody kind of earmarks like March 11th kind of being like the beginning, the real beginning of the life altering part of the pandemic. And that was just because sports, whether you like sports or not, sports are an integral part of, society and our hierarchy. And so it's a big deal when all of a sudden, like a fucking sports league literally folds like that night and says,
oh, we're done.
Like it's done. Like we're not doing anything. Like there was discussions leading up to March 11th of maybe they'll do limited fans, maybe they won't do any fans, and then it literally went from like that, like discussion that most people weren't even talking about. Like that was like interleague discussions. And then like one person tested positive in the league, and the NBA said, it's done.
Yeah.
We're done. It's shut down.
Yep. And
it was just crazy. So yeah. So everybody out there, check out that. Even if you don't like sports, it's a hour worth your time to check out the ESPN 30 for 30 podcast, and it's called March 11th, 2020. So
sounds good. All right. But if you like this episode, hit the like button, subscribe. We'll be back next week with some more nerd talk and stuff that we're into, but we just want to kind of do like nerd. So all right, everybody, take it easy.
Peace.